Section 2. The erosion of authentic self-worth. If the validation trap is the stage on which modern life plays out, the erosion of authentic self-worth is its most devastating consequence. At first glance, external approval seems harmless, even encouraging. Who doesn't enjoy a compliment from a colleague, or the joy of seeing friends celebrate our successes? Yet, when the pursuit of validation becomes central to our sense of identity, it begins to hollow us out. Like water dripping slowly on stone, this erosion is subtle, often unnoticed, until the cracks in our self-worth are too deep to ignore. From internal compass to external mirror, self-worth, at its healthiest, grows from within. It is built on an inner compass, a sense of values, beliefs, and goals that define who we are, regardless of external circumstances. When we act in alignment with this compass, we feel grounded, even if the world does not immediately applaud us. But when societal validation becomes the primary source of worth, the compass is replaced by a mirror. Instead of asking, "What do I believe in?" we ask, "How am I being perceived?" The reflection becomes more important than the reality. This constant mirroring weakens our ability to stand firm in the face of disapproval, because our sense of self no longer belongs to us. It belongs to the crowd. The irony is that while validation feels like it builds us up, it actually chips away at our independence. We may look confident on the surface, but inside we are tethered to the whims of others, anxiously awaiting their verdicts. Silencing the unique voice. Every person carries a unique voice, a way of seeing, expressing, and contributing to the world. Yet when validation becomes the measure of worth, this voice often gets silenced. Why risk sharing an unpopular opinion when conformity guarantees applause? Why pursue a passion that may not gain recognition, when following the trend brings instant visibility? This silencing is especially apparent in creative fields. Artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers throughout history have often produced their most meaningful work in defiance of societal norms. But in a culture dominated by algorithms and instant feedback, the incentive to please the crowd is overwhelming. Instead of originality, we get replication. Instead of depth, we get surface-level appeal. The tragedy is not only cultural, it is deeply personal. When we silence our unique voice, we disconnect from our truest selves. The illusion of enough. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of external validation is its inability to satisfy. A single compliment or moment of recognition can feel intoxicating, but the high fades quickly. Soon, we are looking for the next source of approval, and the next, and the next. This cycle mirrors addiction. The more we consume, the more we need, yet the satisfaction diminishes over time. This creates the illusion that we are never enough. No matter how much praise we receive, it is never quite sufficient. The post that received 200 likes becomes a disappointment if the next only gathers 100. The promotion that once felt like a triumph begins to pale when others achieve more. External validation sets a moving target that cannot be caught. As this illusion deepens, authentic self-worth is eroded. We begin to question our intrinsic value, measuring ourselves not by who we are, but by how we perform. And because performance is inconsistent and subject to external whims, our sense of worth becomes unstable, swinging wildly between elation and despair. The anxiety of performance. With this erosion comes anxiety. When our worth is tied to validation, every action feels like a performance. Posting a photo is not just sharing, it is auditioning for approval. Speaking up in a meeting is not just contributing, it is risking judgment. Even simple decisions, what to wear, where to go, who to associate with, become fraught with the question, how will this look to others? This anxiety can be paralyzing. For some, it manifests as constant overthinking, replaying scenarios in their minds to analyze how they were perceived. For others, it leads to avoidance, declining opportunities, withholding opinions, or retreating into isolation to avoid potential disapproval. In both cases, the erosion of authentic self-worth diminishes not only confidence, but also the willingness to live fully. depression in the shadow of approval. While validation may provide short bursts of joy, its absence can cast long shadows. The silence of an audience, whether in the form of unliked posts, overlooked efforts, or unacknowledged achievements, can feel like rejection. Over time, this perceived rejection accumulates, feeding into feelings of inadequacy and despair. Psychological research has linked excessive validation-seeking behavior to higher rates of depression and loneliness. This makes sense. When our self-worth depends on approval, we are at the mercy of forces beyond our control. Even the most successful cannot escape this trap. Celebrities with millions of fans often report crippling insecurity because they know that public opinion is fickle. If even widespread approval cannot guarantee lasting self-worth, what hope does ordinary validation hold? The hidden loss, self-discovery. Perhaps the greatest cost of this erosion is not simply anxiety or depression, but the loss of self-discovery. When we are constantly focused on how we are perceived, we miss the chance to truly explore who we are. Self-discovery requires space, the freedom to fail, to experiment, to pursue paths without worrying about applause. But in a validation-driven culture, failure is feared, experimentation is risky, and deviation from the norm feels dangerous. As a result, many of us never fully discover our passions, strengths, or identities. We live lives shaped by expectations rather than authenticity. We follow career paths because they look impressive, not because they fulfill us. We maintain relationships that appear enviable but feel hollow. We curate lifestyles that photograph well but nourish us poorly. In losing touch with authentic self-worth, we lose the opportunity to live authentically. Glimmers of authenticity. Yet all is not lost. Even in the midst of erosion, there are moments when authentic self-worth shines through. It might be the quiet pride of completing a task that no one else notices. It could be the joy of creating something for the sheer love of it, without sharing it publicly. Or it might be the relief of speaking an unpopular truth and realizing that, regardless of the response, we have honored our own integrity. These moments are powerful because they remind us of what true self-worth feels like: stable, quiet, and enduring. Unlike the fleeting rush of validation, authentic self-worth does not depend on applause. It arises from alignment with our inner compass. Each time we choose authenticity over performance, we strengthen this inner foundation, protecting it from erosion. Conclusion to Section 2. The erosion of authentic self-worth is not an overnight collapse, but a gradual process, one like waves slowly wearing down a shoreline. The longer we depend on societal validation, the more fragile we become, until our sense of self is shaped entirely by others' expectations. And yet, awareness is the first step toward resistance. By naming this erosion, we can begin to counter it. We can choose to cultivate worth that grows from within, to nurture the quiet strength of authenticity, and to remember that the deepest approval we seek must ultimately come from ourselves. Section 3. The Performance Treadmill. An Endless Race. If the erosion of authentic self-worth weakens our inner foundation, the performance treadmill ensures that we never stop running. It is the exhausting cycle of striving, presenting, and competing to maintain a certain image in the eyes of others. On the treadmill, there is no finish line, only the relentless demand to keep moving, to keep proving, to keep performing. The constant pressure to be on. Modern life rarely allows us to step off stage. With the rise of digital technology, we carry our audiences in our pockets, ready to observe us at any moment. A simple decision, where to eat lunch, how to decorate a living space, whether to work late or relax, can become fodder for performance. The camera is always potentially on, and so are we. This constant state of performance takes a toll. Being on requires energy, attention, and emotional labor. Even moments that should bring rest, family dinners, vacations, time alone, are often co-opted into performances. A sunset is no longer just a sunset. It is an opportunity for a photo. A workout is not just about health. It is a chance to share progress online. Life becomes a stage, and the person behind the mask slowly disappears. The burnout of endless proving. At first, the treadmill can feel exhilarating. Each burst of validation brings energy to run faster, to try harder. But as time passes, the effort required to sustain external approval grows. Audiences become desensitized, trends shift, and competitors multiply. The same level of performance that once drew applause now barely draws notice. This diminishing return leads to burnout. To maintain visibility, individuals feel compelled to increase their efforts, more content, bigger achievements, louder expressions of success. Yet the more they give, the less they feel fulfilled. The treadmill accelerates, but the destination never changes. Burnout is not just exhaustion. It is the deep sense that no amount of effort will ever be enough. It leaves people feeling trapped, too invested to step off the treadmill, yet too depleted to keep running with joy. The next win syndrome. One of the cruelest features of the performance treadmill is the illusion that the next achievement will finally bring peace. The next promotion, the next viral post, the next purchase, the next milestone, it will surely be enough. But when the moment arrives, satisfaction quickly fades. The applause dies down, and the silence feels unbearable. The only way to escape the silence is to chase the next win. This syndrome creates a cycle of perpetual striving. Instead of savoring achievements, individuals rush past them in search of the next source of validation. Time itself becomes compressed. The future matters more than the present, because the present never feels sufficient. Identity in motion. The treadmill not only consumes energy, it reshapes identity. When we are always performing, we begin to define ourselves by the roles we play. We are the high achiever, the influencer, the trendsetter, the caretaker, the comedian. These roles can be rewarding, but they can also become cages. If we stop performing them, will we still be valued? This identity in motion creates fragility. A setback in one role, a failed project, a decline in followers, a broken relationship, can feel like the collapse of the entire self. Without performance, who are we? The treadmill offers no answer, only the command to keep running. The cost of inauthenticity. On the treadmill, authenticity often takes second place to approval. We learn to exaggerate, to edit, to present ourselves in ways that maximize applause. Over time, this can create a profound disconnect between our outer performance and our inner reality. Consider the professional who presents confidence and competence at every meeting, yet privately struggles with imposter syndrome. Or the social media user who posts glamorous photos while quietly battling loneliness. These performances may win validation, but they deepen the gap between perception and reality. The larger the gap grows, the more alienated we feel from ourselves. Living inauthentically is exhausting because it requires constant vigilance. We must always monitor what others see, hiding what feels vulnerable or unpolished. This vigilance robs us of ease, spontaneity, and true intimacy with others. The emotional roller coaster. The treadmill is not a steady run, it is a roller coaster. Each burst of validation brings a high, each silence or criticism a low. For some, the highs are intoxicating. Adrenaline rushes that feel like success, love, or even purpose. For others, the lows dominate, paralyzing doubt, anxiety, or despair. This volatility destabilizes emotional health. Instead of cultivating a steady sense of well-being, people find themselves whipped back and forth by forces outside their control. Life becomes less about living and more about reacting to comments, to metrics, to fleeting signs of approval. The invisible competition. One reason the treadmill never stops is that we are rarely running alone. Every act of performance is implicitly compared to others. On social media, achievements do not exist in isolation. They are placed side by side with the achievements of others. A joyful announcement of a new job might feel muted when followed by a friend's announcement of a higher-paying role at a more prestigious company. This invisible competition is draining because it is unwinnable. There will always be someone wealthier, more attractive, more accomplished, more applauded. And even if we manage to win temporarily, the victory is fragile. One algorithm change, one competitor's success, one moment of silence from the crowd, and the illusion of superiority vanishes. The fear of irrelevance. Perhaps the deepest fear on the performance treadmill is not failure, but irrelevance. To fail is at least to be noticed. To be irrelevant is to vanish from the collective consciousness, to exist without acknowledgement. In a culture that equates attention with worth, irrelevance feels like annihilation. This fear keeps many trapped. Even when exhausted, they continue performing, because to step off feels like disappearing. Yet this perpetual motion only deepens exhaustion, ensuring that they never truly experience rest or authenticity. Stepping off the treadmill, if only briefly. Despite its relentlessness, the treadmill is not inescapable. Small acts of resistance can create space for rest and authenticity. Choosing not to post a moment, allowing silence after an achievement, or embracing activities for their own sake, these are steps toward stepping off. The relief of these moments is profound. Without the need to perform, we reconnect with the intrinsic joy of living. We laugh without rehearsing, create without curating, rest without documenting. These glimpses remind us that worth does not have to be earned through performance. It can simply be lived. Conclusion to Section 3. The performance treadmill is an endless race, fueled by the fear of irrelevance and the illusion of enough. It leaves us exhausted, alienated, and perpetually unsatisfied. And yet, like any treadmill, it is not inevitable. It continues only as long as we keep running. The challenge is not merely to slow down, but to step off entirely, to risk irrelevance, silence, and imperfection in order to rediscover the deeper rhythms of life. Only then can we reclaim the energy and authenticity lost to endless performance.